Okay, so I think we're live 20 seconds late. Sorry if you've been refreshing for 20 seconds. Now I just have to wait and see if anybody actually shows up. I am going to just get some things ready. Going to make sure that I can share PolyNome so you'll be able to see that on the screen. And let's see. Okay, so I believe I'm live. Let me just check. Okay, that seems to be working. So I'm going to keep an eye on the view account. If you come and you have some questions, any questions for me, just put them right in the comments on YouTube. You need to be signed in order for that to work. I can see there's one person. I can see James. Let me add James to the stage. Hello.
Hello.
I was really scrabbling to get all that.
Doesn't it always go like that?
I know, yeah. Like rebooting everything and it's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
All right,
I've
looks
had
like,
that on Zoom lessons, and it's horrible, that feeling.
yeah. I have a feeling seeing that only 6 people actually replied to that thing. I'm just looking at my Wi-Fi as well, which seems to be not as many bars as it should have. Let's hope that doesn't crap out. Yeah, there's a possibility that the 6 people who registered might not show up and just want to watch it on a recording, and
Yeah.
of just having the whole first 10 minutes be me warbling and waiting for people to show up. So I reckon I'll just jump into it with you, and then if people do join along the way, they can ask questions and we can answer those questions.
Yeah, that's cool with me. Yeah.
So we'll consider it a test recording.
Okay.
Okay, so you reached out to me to ask if I wanted to demonstrate Rhythm Generator and PolyNome for Drum Tutors, your Drum Tutor Facebook group.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So we'll kind of, I'll try and gear this towards the tutoring side as much as I can. It's a while since I've done any teaching, but there's certainly tools that I built into PolyNome that were geared towards practice log and teaching and things like that. And there's a few things that I think could be really useful on that front. But I think maybe we'll start with Rhythm Generator, which is the newer app that I released. And just because this is
using it.
Yeah, okay, cool. And this is just a simpler one to explain. It's still got quite a lot of functionality in it, but it's more straightforward. So the idea behind this was to have a way of having sight reading challenges that you've not come across before. Because I always found that when I was working on learning to sight read, I would go looking for a book that had rhythms in. And for example, if I was working on coordination things, I might have Gary Chester's New Breed. And when I was teaching, I used to use the reading pages of that book a lot and say, okay, play these things with the right hand and the left hand, and then read this page with the foot. And and that works as a coordination challenge because you're working on that kind of independence and interdependence between the limbs. But as a sight reading challenge, it becomes stale quite quickly because you just know it. And so you're playing from memory. And I find that was always the case. So I kind of wanted fresh challenges because once I've seen something, I don't know how much is me reading it and how much is me remembering it. So that's one of the challenges that I was kind of trying to tackle with this. And the other one is if you're reading
a bit of both, possibly.
Yeah. And if you're reading from a book, you also don't know if you're playing it correctly, unless maybe it comes with a CD.
But that's and that's when the kind of second guessing comes in, doesn't it, with the student? Because they might think that I've had this before in lessons where they've said that didn't feel right or that didn't sound right, but actually they played it perfectly. But I sometimes wonder whether the whole activity of reading as you're playing, sometimes, whether it's a book or a screen or whatever, it's hard to then actively listen to yourself as you're playing. Then, so
but there are definitely a lot of challenges with learning to sight read. So
totally.
So I'll show you some of the things that I built into this to kind of deal with that stuff. So the main interface, there's not that many buttons on here, and the main one for setting it up as this gear button down in the bottom right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we'll deal with just fixed note choices. Progressive basically means that it will move through through the different levels as you go. So it will start with the easy rhythms, and then it'll move on to harder ones and harder ones. But we'll just stay with fixed. So on the difficulty level, as you select them, you can see what the difficulty levels are kind of including. So level 3 introduces some offbeat eighth notes. Level 4 is basic and 8th and 16th combinations. Now this might have locked me out again. Let me just get this going. So basically it's free to install, and there are a bunch of things you can do with the free version. And then for the more complex rhythms, you need an annual subscription for that, but it's pretty cheap. So then you get down to custom. So this is a useful page for anybody learning to read rhythms, because it's got all the different options in. You've got a whole note rest and a whole note, and then a half note rest and a half note, and the dotted versions, and then quarter notes and dotted versions. And then as you get down into these beamed groups, eighth notes, you've got 2 eighth notes, and you've got the offbeat eighth note. And when you get to 16th, and this is usually where it becomes a challenge for people reading music, you've got all the different permutations, and I grouped them as 1-note permutations, 2-note permutations, 3-note permutations, partially because as a drummer and a teacher, that's how I would approach things when working on independence. It's like, okay, work through all the 1-note permutations and then through all the 2-note permutations. And so it's nice to see them. Yeah, so it's nice to see those laid out and to see that these are your 4 options. And when you're kind of comparing them to the top here, you can see, well, that's the first note, that's the second one, that's the third one, that's the fourth one. So the fact that they're in order makes that useful.
That's the first stumbling block that I find with the reading of drum notation, is the permutations of just 4/16 notes, how they look and what they sound like. That's when the first real confusion starts to come in. So if somebody sees that straight ahead, then they're pretty much getting used to it. And I guess hearing it as well, because if you can go through TED Read and all the rest of it and get it displayed, but if it's there to watch and listen, then that's even better. Then so it's cool.
So okay, so let's assume that you're in a lesson, you're teaching somebody the 4 different permutations of 16th notes. You want to learn what they look like, so they probably already know this one and this one, because they're the simple 8th notes. Whoops, let me get back in there. So on the 16th permutations, so then it's this, the E and the A, which will be new. So it's the 16th rest and a dotted 8th, or a dotted 8th and a 16th note. So if you wanted to kind of drill these, you can select what you want to appear in the custom level here. So I can hit all to choose all of those single note 16ths. And then let's go back. And down here, you're choosing the time signature and the number of bars of rhythm, and then how many times to play each bar. And then auto generate will shuffle the pattern up every few bars. And let's put a count in on.
Does it now? Can you choose how many bars it would auto generate on?
Yeah, well, it's not. So the bars of rhythm is the number of bars that are generated. So like this is set to 4, right, okay. And then auto generate is how many cycles go. So if I choose 2, it auto generates after 2 cycles. So it would play the 4 bars through twice, and then it would give you a new set. So I'm going to turn this off, and we'll have 4 bars of rhythm. But actually, down here, I'm going to switch to training mode. So it defaults to random mode, where it's giving you random combinations of those notes, which is the reading challenge. But training mode, it repeats each kind of jigsaw piece for the whole bar. So now you get to see it and hear it laid out in front of you. And there's ordered and shuffled. So ordered mode plays them in the order that they appeared in that list. So that's kind of working through them like that. And then shuffled will give you each one for a full bar again, but it randomizes the order that they appear. So shuffled is kind of the next step up, where you don't know what you're going to get, but you still get a whole bar's worth. And then in playback mode, default just plays it. Read first plays it with the cursor moving along, but without you hearing it. So you have to see if you get it right, and then it plays it so you can hear it. and listen first, it plays it, and then on the repeat it's muted. So you can use that as a kind of ear training thing. You don't have to look at the screen, you get a rhythm and then you play it back.
So straight away then, one thing I'm thinking there, are you conversant with the Rock School unseen exercises from the grades?
No.
Towards the end of the grades, basically, I think, right from the off, from initial all the way up to grade 8. So initial 1 to 8, you have ear tests and groove recall. Whereas if you do a face-to-face exam, for example, with a Rock School examiner, at the end of the exam, they will probably do an ear test where they'll play back. Either the examiner will play on a snare drum, or they'll play some audio of maybe 2 bars or 4 bars of snare, and you've got to listen to it twice and then play it back. And the difficulty level goes up pretty obviously per grade. So you could easily, I reckon, just by checking out some of the examples in the Rock School syllabus, you could randomize that with this really easily then. So that's one of the hardest things because there is a book, there's a companion guide that you can buy on top of the Rock School grades, which gives you more examples, but something like this would be even better because it would just be totally random then.
So this would give you like completely random reading challenges or listening challenges, like you say.
Yeah.
And if you wanted, if it was going to be from a subset of things, you can't program your own rhythms into Rhythm Generator, but you can program them in PolyNome and then import them to Rhythm Generator. So that allows you to take, for example, a page of New Breed and put it in Rhythm Generator as something to play it back and see the score. And when you've imported something, you can shuffle that rhythm up in various ways. So, for example, the reason for that was I wanted to be able to program the table of time into this. And then I wanted different ways of shuffling things up. So when you've programmed a rhythm, you can say, just mix the bars up. So keep the contents of the bars the same, but rearrange them. So then, you're always getting the same rhythms back, but you don't know what order they're going to come in. Or you can say, mix up the note groups within the bars. So you're still getting the same components. If you only put in quarter notes and eighth notes, you're only going to get back quarter notes and eighth notes, but in different orders. Or you can say, mix up the notes within the note groups. So if you put quintuplets in there, you can have it mix up which notes are on and off in that quintuplet. Or so the reason for that was
exactly what you'd need.
Yeah, because I wanted to have exercises where I kind of knew what was coming but wanted a challenge. So for example, I wanted to work on playing eighth notes into quintuplets. So 1 bar of eighth notes, 1 bar of quintuplets. But I then wanted permutations of those things, but I wanted it to always be eighth notes for a bar, quintuplets for a bar. So in the, I created that 1 bar of eighths, 1 bar of quintuplets, and imported it from PolyNome. And then I said, don't shuffle the bars, don't shuffle the note groups, just shuffle the notes within the note groups. And that gave me eighth notes and quintuplets, but with some notes missing. So you kind of know the framework and you just don't know which notes are going to come up.
Yeah, that's great.
So let's say we're in default mode here, and you can choose the sound that plays it back, and you can choose a swing if you want. So now what we have is just a really basic training exercise that goes through, gives you your count off, and then you get 16ths. So it's 1 bar of each, and you can tell it to play each bar more times if you want. So you can have 4 bars, 4 repeats per line. So this is giving you those blocks, and so you can work on them. And I suppose if you wanted, you could just set this to be 1/4. So you just see each thing once. And let's say we'll play each bar twice, for example. So now you can see, instead of having them all on a line, you're seeing what this is. This looks a bit weird. It's so spread out, but in a way, it's like, okay, this is what we're working with. Yeah.
That's good. Cool.
Okay, so we get the idea with that. So there's a shortcut to getting to the listen first and read first, but let me put this back to 4/4. And let's say we've now, and I'll play each bar once, but let's say you've done this first step of learning those jigsaw pieces, and now you want to test your reading, but you only want to be presented with those. You don't want to be getting anything else, thrown in there. So you know exactly what's going to come at you. You just don't know the order. So to do that, we would just change into, you could change to shuffled training mode first, which, like I mentioned, gives you a bar of each thing, but now in a different order. So now we've got the offbeat, the A and then the E. And because I said 4 bars, now we're just seeing 4 bars at a time. And if I tap this dice button, it will shuffle it up, so I can say new rhythm and it will give me a new one. This shows you what's coming next. Okay, so you get the idea. You can hit this to basically mix up what you're getting. And because we're in that training mode, it's the same beat repeated 4 times for each line. So now we'll go into...
You know the dice icon?
Yeah.
Are you able to hold it down as well?
Yeah.
And that, right, okay. Yeah, I've got you.
Yeah. So in here, previous rhythm is if you had it on auto generate, and so you were playing, a bar and it was like repeating it a few times, and then it auto generated a new pattern and you're like, oh, I actually wanted to go back to that last one to work on something. That's what that's for. And if you say auto generate after 1 cycle, you'll see down at the bottom, you see this next part. And this is just because when you get to the end of this bar, you don't want the whole 4 bars to refresh on the downbeat of the next bar, because then you don't have any chance to read ahead. So this tells you what's coming. So basically you'll get to line 4, and when this line finishes, it's going to jump back to line 1, but whatever was in this next field is going to be up here. So you can kind of see what's coming.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, if this is on auto generate, so we'll say auto generate after 1 cycle. So this will play through. Okay. And when you're in this mode, if you hit the dice button while it's playing, it disables that auto generate. So you can be going through and it's giving you a whole bunch of different patterns, and then it gets to one that you like and you want to keep. If you tap this, it turns off auto generate and just stays on this one. So let's go into this. Excuse the screaming kids in the background. So now we'll go into random mode instead of training mode. So now we're shuffling up within bars as well. So you've got a mixture of the 4/16, or the offbeat 8th, all those different permutations that we had, but that's still all you have. So this reading challenge, in theory, is achievable if you've worked on those components and you're familiar with them. Now it's just a case of, playing what you see. So if you were working through this, I might turn this tempo up a little bit so that, and turn the counter off. And if you long press on this, by the way, you can switch between the read first and the listen first. So there's one more setting in here, I think, that if you're on, for example, read first, you can choose whether you are reading a single bar or the full pattern. So if you're on single bar, you'll see those 4 bars that you're going to be dealing with, but it will play the first one and let you read it and then play it back and you'll hear it, and then it will move on to the next one. Whereas if you do the full pattern, it will let you read the whole 4 bars and then it will play the whole 4 bars. So with single bar, read first. So you get to kind of work through this and see if you got it right. And this already is seeming quite advanced, it's very syncopated, having all those, individual offbeat E's and A's and things. So that's not easy reading, even though it's only those, permutations of single notes within 16ths.
Just for 16ths, yeah. Are you hearing the rhythms coming out there?
Oh, you're not hearing anything?
I was hearing, I did hear the kind of accent sound, but I'm not getting the snare hits now.
Really? Okay, that's weird. Let me just play this. Like now,
so I've got
nothing because it's
You don't just a single beep and then nothing.
That's bizarre. Okay, a little bit of just checking what's going on. Because the beep is coming through the same speaker. Let me turn off the read first.
Okay. I mean, still, obviously, you can still understand what's going on with it, but...
Oops. Are you hearing that?
No.
You hearing the beep?
I did hear a single beep.
Oh, just one bit. Okay, wait a minute. Let me. This might be bugs with the loopback. What about now?
No, nothing.
No. Okay, let me just check. Settings, visual audio, William audio device.
I've been doing a lot of brush practice at home recently, just on the worktop.
Yeah.
And that element with the fourth bar, or the fifth bar in this case, getting to view it first. That was one of the problems I had with the exercises I was doing. Is it was like just presenting you with the fifth bar without any warning at all. And of course,
yeah,
you're playing catch up then. But it's something as simple as that would be really cool. So that is good.
It's very useful. I'm just going to check in on the live page because it might just be because you're in the studio with me that you're not hearing that audio. So
see if it's coming up on the other.
Okay, so I just checked the live stream and it is on the live stream, the audio.
Brilliant.
So it's unfortunately only you that can't hear that.
I've got a good imagination, Joe, don't worry.
It's all right. And I even saw in the comments from Gainer and Joaquin, is that, I don't know how to pronounce that, Joakim, that they could hear it. So thanks, guys. I wasn't seeing the comments, so that's good. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to ask away in the comments and I will get around to answering those. Okay, so that's the idea with this. You've got reading challenges that are infinite. You've got ear training challenges, which are infinite. And I had a lot of fun playing along with this, testing my thing. I really like, where you get the triplets and the eighth notes in there and switching between them. You get some very kind of Vinny-esque figures. And there's all sorts of different ways you can use this. The way that you use any reading text, you can apply this. So I will show you a couple of things. You can, if you have PolyNome, you can send this randomly generated rhythm to PolyNome with this share button here. You can also share it to a student. If you've been working on something, you can share it with them. And that's more useful if you've programmed something. So like I say, you can program something in PolyNome. If you go to the Shuffle tab here, you've got an option to browse the library. And I put a few things in there, like, let's see, like table of time rhythms. So version 1 is a whole note divided 1 through 16 and then back down. So if you tap on that, now you've got the table of time. And now you have this, you've got the shuffle options. So the shuffle options here, because we're in shuffle mode, you can choose whether to shuffle the bars in the pattern. So when that's on, it will mix up the order of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You hit shuffle, there it's 7, 5, 2, 3, whatever. Shuffle note groups in bar won't do anything in this instance because there's only one note group per bar. And then the note group action, you can choose to shuffle the notes or randomize the notes. So the difference there, say you had a triplet with the middle note missing, shuffling the notes would always give you 2 out of 3 notes just in different places. Randomizing the notes gives you a random permutation of triplets. So if you choose to randomize the notes, I forgot you could do this. You can choose the note density range. So you can say randomize it and only give me like a few notes out of the lot, or give me a lot of notes. So if it was a few notes, you'd be getting 1 note out of 3 or 1 note out of 10.
Okay.
And if it was on the high end, you'd be getting 9 notes out of 10, 2 notes out of 3. Or you can have the full range. So if I actually do this, I'll leave the bars in order and I'll leave the note groups in order and I'll just randomize the notes. And now when we hit this dice or this shuffle button, you'll see that this quintuplet here, some of the notes are missing, but we're still in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 order, etc.
Right.
So yeah, you've got some, there's a bit of funkiness going on here. So yeah, I don't know who wants to read that, but somebody might. So we'll go back to, Yeah, we'll go back to the generate mode. We'll go into settings, and I will choose a custom difficulty and just show you some of the things. So you could say, give me all of the permutations of 16th notes, which is permutations of with 1 note or 2 notes or 3 notes. And these ones here, I would say the 2s and the 3s that aren't the standard 8th note thing are the ones that you kind of got to learn when you're reading rhythms. This is mainly what you come across. Quarter triplets. Okay, these can be challenging when you've got like a quarter note rest and a half note, or in the sextuplets, actually 8th note triplet, seeing, spotting the difference between a quarter note rest and an 8th, or an 8th note rest and a quarter. And then you've got some mixed 16ths and triplets come up in snare solos quite a lot. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and there's septuplets and quintuplets in here for those people who, really want to challenge. So once you've selected those options, now this becomes, a reading challenge that's combining all of those different options. So let's say you create something and you want some help counting this. You can send this to PolyNome. You could create a link or a QR code that somebody could scan and open it in Rhythm Generator. Even if they don't have the subscription, I think they'll be able to play back whatever you've scanned. So you can create exercises like that for them to play along to. If I open it in PolyNome, and you can print it as well, and there's a QR code on the printing, so you could print out an exercise from your favorite book, and then they could scan that. Okay. So this has opened that rhythm in PolyNome. And then one of the sort of useful features in PolyNome is you can tap on this menu here, and there's auto counting, which puts in the count for the rhythm and voice counts it for you. 1, 2, and 4, and 3, and so I'm guessing you can't hear that, but the other people.
Well, I can hear the count, but not the notes, which is really strange.
Yeah, that is very strange. What, you can hear 1 E, 2 E, that you can hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And the notes are just being played at the same time as that count, on a snare.
Yeah. I'm used to them. That's cool.
So one of the things with this is you're not hearing, if I was counting this, I would go 1 E, 2 E, 3 E, and I'd kind of whisper the 3, but because we're only hearing what the rhythm is, you're not hearing the pulse there. So in the mixer down here, we're hearing a click. 1, 2, and 4, and. But if you wanted to hear the a voice counting, the quarter notes as well, this button is quick metronome settings, and on the right hand side you can choose voice count, and this sets the metronome to count with a voice. So that's going to count quarter notes. If I choose quarter notes on the left here, 1, 2, 3, and. So I can mute in the mixer. This is rhythm 1. I can mute that. You can see it's bringing the volume down, and then the counting turns gray when that's muted, and then we'll just be hearing the bar. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, which actually is also a nice way to work on these. Just hearing the count of the beat and seeing what you're supposed to be counting, because the voice is a little bit weird, I do admit. But you can also, I'm going to pull the bar fader down because you may have noticed that this was counting the bars. So by default, when you turn on voice counting, it counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, up to whatever you decide. So if you pull the bar fader down, then it will just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Okay, so then you could push up the volume of that counting. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1. And then if you want a kind of whispered count of the beats, you can just pull this fader down. So somewhere in the middle, you'll get a balance that works for you. And when auto counting is on in PolyNome, if you edit this rhythm, I can go delete these. The auto counting kind of works as you're in here. So if you enter a bar's worth of 16ths here, you can see the counting for that underneath. And then to remove some of these notes, you hit edit and take out the ones you don't want. So if you were looking at like what happens if we take out this note, you can see you would count that as 1 and a. And if you leave this one in and take that one out, you would count that as 1 e a. So, that counting's updating as you're changing the rhythms in here. So that's another tool that could be useful when you're
when I was going through the Wilcox and stuff, I was hammering that all the time and found it incredibly it's essential really. Otherwise it would have taken a lot longer to go through some of that stuff. So
and there's things that I've added, I think, relatively recently that you probably asked about years ago, because it's only recently that it's been, if you go to eighth notes here and you choose 2 and 3, that it will beam those together. It didn't used to do that. So you had to do other workarounds to represent things like this.
No, I do remember that. Yeah.
And this is actually sort of meter dependent in that, let's say I just enter a bunch of eighth notes like this. You can see it's beaming them as we go. But if we were in 6/4, for example, which can also be a compound time, so it's beaming them this way. And now what happens is if you want this in compound time, if you go into the tempo control and choose, there seems to be some missing button things here. So if you choose dotted quarter note equals here, then it will group those to the pulse, which it also didn't used to do. So that's kind of flexible now.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. So I see we've already no questions come through yet. I'm just trying to see where.
When you get a chance, could you just show us what the printed PDF? What does it actually look like when it's
the one in Rhythm Generator?
Yeah.
Let's have a look. So you go on the share button, create PDF. You can choose your paper size, how many measures you want on a row, give it a title, reading example. You can put title and author or whatever you want. And then on create PDF.
Good. Okay.
It looks like that.
That's very tiny, isn't it?
Yeah. So you've got your reading, you've got the Rhythm Generator URL down here. If you scan that, it opens up that particular rhythm.
Right.
And so
good.
The way, how do I close this? Oh, there we go. So the way I think that could be useful is if you wanted to program specific things in. So let's go to, okay, it only works for now, sending from PolyNome to Rhythm Generator with the rhythms. So no articulations or accents or things like that. But eventually, like now iOS 26 is out the way, I'm going to work on getting those things in there. So even if Rhythm Generator can't play them, you could print music that's got that. So the idea is that you could take a snare solo that's in PolyNome and send it to Rhythm Generator to print it, and it would have everything in there, even if Rhythm Generator doesn't play those things, because it's quite complicated getting flams and drags and stuff to play. So while we're in PolyNome, only one person asked a question when they signed up, and the question was, rudiments and exercises are often played on a single instrument. On acoustic drums, it's often possible to hear the right and left sticking as different pitch or timbre due to differing stick constructions and where and how the drum is struck. Although the goal is usually to play in such a way that minimizes the different sticking sound, it is often helpful when teaching or learning patterns to be able to hear the sticking as a melody. Does PolyNome provide a way, hopefully quick and easy, to play back with different sounds for those things? Yes, it does. So let's look at, let's just I'm going to go to the basic metronome. So if you don't know your way around PolyNome, it should be more intuitive than it used to be. But over here on the library screen up here, there's a metronome button, and this loads the default metronome preset, which is what you should just use if you just want to click and you're not bothered about logging what you're practicing. Because one of the things PolyNome does is tracks everything that you play, like how long did you play for, what tempo, what time and date did you do it, and then you can view charts of that stuff. So if you did everything against this metronome preset, you would know what tempos you'd played and what and when you'd done it and how long for, but there's no way of dividing that up and saying, oh, I was working on this exercise at this point, and this exercise at this point. So
it still tots up the time that you've used on it, though, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. But the time is divided between presets. So what I like to do is, even if what I'm working on is just to a regular click, I like to just give it a name. So if I was working on just general reading practice and I just want a click, I would tap on the name here and duplicate and call it reading practice, or the name of the book I'm working on, or the page. Whoops, can't spell. So, this is the exact same thing. And the benefit of that is, let's just play for a little bit. I'm going to turn on this button here, shows you, like a bug. Let's see what happens when we stop. Okay, so this shows you that you just did 10 seconds at 120 BPM on Sunday, October 5th at 3:05 on the preset reading practice. If I go back, the last one was 24 seconds of playing the random rhythm preset. So you can see, and then what's useful is, if you want to know the last time you worked on reading practice, if you tap on the gear button here and go to practice log, you can see 10 seconds today is the last time that we did it. If I go to that default metronome preset and look in here, practice log will have more things for these. 2 days ago was the last time that I played, and I did it for a minute. And my BPM range is 80 to 120 BPM. You can look at charts here.
You can tell you've got young children, Joe.
Yeah, this is
used to be ours.
I know. I think this is, let's see if we look on all time. This is just a test installation, so there's not a lot on here. I need to put some fake stuff on for the drum show. Unless I cleared that. Let's look. So in the practice log, let's go to the menu. So if you look at the practice log, not getting to it from a specific preset, then this is my entire practice log on this device. So total is 16 minutes in 1 year and 74 days, which, yeah, it's not a lot. And then if I look on the charts, I can see that broken down by practice time per day, practice time per preset. So it looks like it's basically just what we've done today that's in here.
This is like the drummer's equivalent of Strava. If we really want to mess with people on social media, we can put our stats up, can't we?
You know what I did for the new year? I put a thing where it would show you your stats for the year, and that'll come around again like relatively soon.
Right.
But the reason that this exists is because, I don't know, back in 2012 or 2013 or something, I got into running. I was never into running, hated it at school. And the only thing that convinced me to have a go was that, I think the app was called Runkeeper. Like, something came out on the iPhone that said it would track you run. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'll go for a run and I'll see where I ran, and I'll see how long I ran for. And then it feels like it's not for nothing. I mean, I know it wasn't for nothing, but I used that and various run apps over the years. And it was nice to go, oh, this month I ran, however many miles, and it might not have been much, but the fact that you can see it adding up was like a real motivator for me. And I wanted the same thing in PolyNome. And the actual story is that I moved to London. I used to have a website where I'd do like educational videos, and it became a thing where whenever I was in the studio to practice, I'd be working on something for me, and then I'd think, oh, this would make a good video. So then it's like, film it, edit it, do all the other stuff. And I never actually got to spend that much time practicing the things. And when I moved to London and I didn't have access to that studio, I actually did my own practice for a while. And one of the things that I wanted to do was start each session just playing to a click, playing quarter notes on the hi-hat at a tempo. So say 150, play quarter notes on the hi-hat for 2, 3, 4 minutes, and just try and completely bury the metronome so that I couldn't hear it at all. And the aim was to, try and have like a minute where I didn't hear that metronome click, which I wouldn't usually get more than a few seconds. But the idea was to focus on just really locking that in, and then having that be the start of every practice session. But I wanted to cover the range of tempos and kind of like break it up. And so I would write down okay, today I did 150 and I did it for 5 minutes and it felt okay. And then the next day I'd go and it's like, oh, I'll do 160 today. And then the next day I'd do 100. And I've never been a fan of pen and paper. And after a while, it's like, well, these notes aren't that much use. You know, I can't extract a lot of information from these. Wouldn't it be cool to have an app that I could put it into? So that's where this started. I was going to make an app for logging practice. And it's like, what do I need? Tempo, the time, the duration, the name of the preset. And I was thinking, well, PolyNome knows all of that, basically. So I just need to build it into PolyNome. So that was the start of the practice log feature in PolyNome, and also the end of my actual practice, because that's when I turned from drummer into developer, because I was just spending hours and hours coding instead of practicing. And so that's the kind of root of it. And then there's a couple of other things with it that I think could be really useful with teachers. And that is, you'll see there's this little note button. So this is reading practice preset, 10 seconds, 120 BPM. This note button is if something occurs when you did that and you want to make a note of it for future reference. So I could tap on this and say, really struggling with the like third beat, whatever that might be, and hit done. And now we can see that this event has a little note on it. And so if, as a drum teacher, you've given a student something to work on and they are using PolyNome for either just the tempo or have the exercises in here, or you've got practice routine that they're going to work through, whenever they struggle with something, they can just make a note in here. And then when you ask them a week later, you can just look in the notes. They don't have to remember, because it's hard to remember, you know, what you were struggling with unless you write it down somewhere. So the idea was that you could just put it in at the point that it happens. And I've used this in situations like if I'm working on building up hand speed. When you're doing that, it feels like anything that's faster than your current fastest is impossible. You cannot get your head around how you could possibly move your limbs any faster than that. So I would work through, various exercises for building speed that might gradually ramp up the tempo. And then when I hit the tempo that I struggle with, I would put a note saying, left hand seized up at this tempo. And I could see exactly how much time I'd done. And then in the practice log, over time, what you can do is, and this is, I should have an example in here, but if you were viewing everything, there's a filter on here for events with notes. So I've only got one here, but tapping on this shows me that one event and I can look at the note. So as a teacher, you could filter on just events from this week and address all of those notes. And if you're using it for yourself, what you can do, there's a summary report. So I'll just go to everything again. And in the practice report here, if you choose a summary report, it will tell you the dates that you practiced, the tempos you practiced at, things like that. And it will put notes in. Do they put notes in there? Maybe not in here. But if I do the one that's only the events with notes, so practice report, only events with notes, it shows you those. And also, and this isn't a good example of it, but it also shows you the cumulative duration that you've worked on something up until that point. So if you'd been working on hand speed and you'd done half an hour practice before you hit that one that you made a note for, you would see that there was 30 minutes of practice up until this point. And so over time, what that becomes is something that shows you how you've progressed with whatever it is you're working on. And so you can see, oh, it took me actually an hour of cumulative practice, which might have been 2 months worth of practice before I got over that hump. And that was kind of a thing I wanted to get in here, because you would often see books, programming for dummies or this for that. And it's like, learn to code in 24 hours. And you're like, okay, I'll start now. By this time tomorrow, I'll be able to code. But obviously, that's not how your brain works. And nobody can work 24 hours straight on something. What that really means is probably 10 to 15 minutes a day. And then so that's like, if it's 15 minutes a day, so you got 4 days per hour, so 24 times 4. So, you're into like 3 or 4 months before you've done that 24 hours worth of actual work, which is, and it feels like maybe you've done a lot more. So there's another feature in here, which is goals. So with goals, you basically create a new goal, choose an existing preset or playlist that you want to work on. So let's say it's blue cheeses that you want to work on. And then you can choose an open goal or a deadline goal. So a deadline goal would be, I want to do so many hours of practice on this by a certain date. And an open goal is, I want to do so many hours of practice or minutes of practice on this a day or a week or whatever. So if you do a deadline goal and say, I want to do this on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I don't have a target time. No, I do have a target time, which is 2 hours I'm going to do on this. And you can do tempo goals as well, where you say what your current tempo is and what your target tempo is, and then a completion date. So let's say I want to do 2 hours by the 12th. This is telling me I've got to do 40 minutes a day to reach that goal. If it was by the 26th, I need to do 13 minutes a day to reach that goal. So, if you said, I want to do 10,000 hours and I'm going to practice every day, I think it automatically, let's see what happens if I just hit done on this. So here we can swipe to the left and edit. 8 hours a day. It will take me till 7th of March 2029 if I did 8 hours a day of practice to reach 10,000 hours of practice. But this will keep you on track. So the goals page is then where you go to work on the things you want to work on. So you've got all your presets, you've got all your playlists, and the goals page, you say, okay, I want to work on these 3 things on these days and these 4 things on another day. And the goals page will show you what to work on for today. You just tap on it to load it, hit play, and you'll log some time on this. And because this is 8 hours, we're not going to see much chipping away on this. But if I'd said, okay, this is an open goal instead, and all I want to do, I don't have a target time, I just want to do like 2 minutes a day. So now we can say, all right, I've done 7 seconds of my 1 minute. Did I put 1 minute instead of 2? Maybe I did. Okay, 1 minute a day. I've done 7 seconds of my 1 minute a day. So this is just checking off your to-do list. So the idea is ahead of time, you decide what you want to work on, put it in there. And then when it's practice time, you don't have to think about any admin. You just sit down and play. When you've done this, you move on to the next thing. And the other thing that can be useful with that is the ability to attach files to presets or playlists. So if it's a page of music that you're working through and you don't want to program it in, you just want to click, but you want to be able to read the music, I can view this preset in the actual presets library. And if you tap on that gear, or if you long press on it, you can, is it on here? Attach file. So you can take a photo of the page of the book, and then you can just have that show up on the right-hand side of the screen. So you don't need the different drum books. You can just take pictures of the bits that you're working on. So everything's in the one place. Playback, recording, setting your goals, seeing what it is that you want to work on, etc.
Nice.
I feel like I'm rambling a lot.
Well, no, I mean, it's a lot of information, to be fair. So no, it's good. It's good.
I didn't answer that question. I don't know how I got so sidetracked.
Oh, about the different timbre. Sounds intriguing. I've got a few to fire at you as well.
Sorry, I mean, it disconnected for a second there. What was that?
I said I've got a few questions for you as well. Just in case.
All right, I'll answer this one really quickly, and then we'll take questions. So let's say you're working on a paradiddle. This is my workflow often, is I'll go to the default preset, I'll name it, I'll duplicate it and give it the name of whatever I am working on. Duplicate paradiddle. Okay, so I will program the paradiddle. So I'm going to program it as, let's do it as 2/4. So 2 beats of 16th notes. So for that to be a paradiddle, we need to really put a sticking in. So if you tap below the notes, and then you're on the sound buttons here. I'll put right, left, right, left, left. And then I will put an accent in above here. And I'm going to tap on this tap to detach accents, which is a little bit hidden. But by default, if I press the accent button, it puts it just above that one note. And then I could put an accent above this note. If you tap to detach accents, then it works in the same way as the sticking works by default, which is if I put an accent, it plays it on every note. And then I can move to the right and put a spacer in. So by doing an accent on one spacer, I can accent every other note. Accent at two spaces, I can accent every third note, and this will play over the bar line as well. Put another spacer, now we're accenting every fourth note.
Yeah, I didn't know that was there.
Yeah, so that's that. If you wanted to hear what a paradiddle sounds like, accenting every third note, that's all you need to do. You only have to program one paradiddle and put in one accent and two spaces. And now you'll see that these accents change. So you can, hear how that's happening. So we go back in to edit this, and the stickings and the accents are separate from the rhythms. So I can continue to put in these 16th notes until we resolve here. So I know that it takes now three paradiddles worth to resolve that.
Yeah.
And then if I played it, we wouldn't see the accents change because it fits the pattern. So let's go back to the single paradiddle. I'll put an extra spacer in here. So we have that. So, to answer the question, we already have a paradiddle there played between a hi-hat sound and a snare sound. We can go to the sound picker here. There's a default sound set called pads, which is two different practice pad sounds for the right and left. So I use that a lot for things like this. And then if you wanted to hear the same sound, you can do that. You can say, okay, right is set to pad 1, the left one. So I'll show it by tapping this button. So that's the right sound. This is the left sound. So now it's playing them on the same sound. And you could choose any sounds you want in here. So if we search the sounds for keys, I can assign assign different keys. So now I've got you can't hear it, but it's a paradiddle between two different pitches on a keyboard. And then to get back to the pads, I just go to this sound set, and you can save something as a sound set. So you could save a sound set where you have different keys notes for the different hands. And then another feature, which is fairly hidden and very niche, is the ability to create a stroke guide for this. So if you teach upstrokes, downstrokes, full strokes, etc., there is. I thought it was on here. Okay, let's click plus on. So yeah, that's.
I've come across it before, but I can't remember where it was.
Yeah, it used to be, and it might still be that you have to hit plus. I thought I'd added it to this rhythm, that menu, but I don't think I did. So let's go to more. Stroke guide is in here.
There you go.
So this gives you the down, up, tap, tap strokes that you need to play a paradiddle. And then if you wanted to know the stroke guide for a paradiddle accenting every third note, let's fill in those 3 bars worth, and let's delete one of those spaces. So we're accenting every third note of a paradiddle, and this is your stroke guide then in order to play that. So that can save some time when working on those things, and it can be useful. But that's
I used that when I was doing my first book, the snare book, because I was doing it all manually, and I could have just.
So I mean, it's a long. If you're doing it by hand, it can be quite tricky to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely.
So that answers the question, I think, that was asked. So, and then here. Really looking forward to a day when an external input can be plugged to rhythm generator and it can sense if it's played correctly, making it like a game. That'd be super cool. Yeah, I did look into that because there's things that he's saying that it's giving you random rhythms in rhythm generator, and then to have a game where you can play and it tells you if you're accurate or not. I mean, there are apps that sort of do that where you tap on the screen. And I was contemplating trying to do it, but it was quite difficult to get it right, and to try and have things where you can hook up, that's like getting into hardware, which we're not going to do. If you're trying to do it from the mic, then you have issues with latency and stuff like that. So
there's a lot of variables.
I'm not sure. Yeah, and I've just found it's fun enough, and you can hear if there's a different sound, if there's a snare drum sound in Rhythm Generator and you're on a practice pad, you can hear if you get it wrong. So I've decided for now to keep it simpler. Okay, so you said you had some questions.
I do, yes. Case in points, anecdotally, with a student who's struggling with a fairly simple 4-bar phrase at the moment, and all it is 16th note single strokes, about 120 beats per minute, but it's a gradual crescendo over the 4 bars, and it's basically taking longer than you'd expect. So I couldn't remember if we could do crescendos in PolyNome.
You kind of can, although I don't know. You can't do it within a preset, but you could do it within a playlist. So
yeah,
if I wanted to do a crescendo, I would go to the playlists over here and create a new playlist, just a standard one. So crescendo. So that's loaded over here, and then I'll go into edit mode and hit plus to add a rhythm or bar to this. So I'll just call it bar 1, and 4/4, 1 rep of that, add it. And then he said it was 16th notes, 4 bars of 16th notes. So I'll just put in 16th notes here. Okay, so yeah, this isn't going to be ideal because this is going to be 1 bar, and then the next bar will be a bit louder, and the next bar will be a bit louder. So essentially what you need to do if you want a crescendo is to have multiple presets at the volume levels that you want.
Yeah.
So if this is on a snare drum, right, left, there's a hidden feature, like a new thing recently was that you can change the symbols of these buttons, so they don't have to be R, L, K, H. They can be pictures of drums or up and down arrows and things like that. So if I go change symbol, there's all these different symbols you can use. So I figured that, there's guitar strum things here, but you could use up and down arrows for stroke guide stuff if you wanted. There's letters you could use, but I can change button sounds in here. So I'll make them all right and left be on the snare drum. So we've got a single stroke roll. So essentially I would say duplicate this, so I can long press and duplicate item. So I'll make 3 copies of this. So we've got 4 bars in total. And then, you know what? There's actually an auto number thing I should use, because I called that 1 bar 1. Just show you that, because that's kind of hidden feature. So if I, instead of doing duplicate item, if I instead do duplicate auto number and do 3 copies, it will label those bar 2, 3, 4, which can be useful if you're trying to plan out, a piece. So then essentially you would go to the mixer here and set the line 1 volume for the first one to be, you can tap on this and choose like 20%. And then we'll go to the next item in the playlist, tap on this fader, choose 30%. The next one, I probably should have do 60 for that, and the next one 100. So that's going to be some jumps, but
that's probably enough over the course of 4 bars at 120. It's because you really, without sort of mollycoddling somebody, you can't do much more then. So it's like you've got a rough idea what it's sounding like. So
I'm going to change that to 60, 70, 80, 100, because the volume faders, when they're really low, you don't really hear much. And if you wanted to break it up, you could do 16 bars with just the one beat of 16ths, and then you would have a crescendo.
Yeah.
What I would probably do, I think Virgil Donati had a really good video called Power Drumming, where he had a warm-up thing that I programmed warm-ups into this, but one of the warm-ups was playing gradually louder, like crescendos on the pad. I don't know if you can see this, but so it would be, I think it was just 8 notes or 7 notes, just getting gradually louder, and then the other way. And it would be one hand going for a while, and then the other hand, and then unison, just to work on those things. Because 4 bars of crescendo, you sort of need some landmarks, don't you? So
this is what we were doing. We were doing like the Joe Morello idea, where you do the one hand at a time to start with.
Yeah.
So of course, if you right hand lead and you're doing 4 bars of crescendo with single strokes, then it makes sense to actually start with the right hand anyway, doesn't it? And just train your right hand to go from piano to whichever. So yeah.
That is quite a long period to be doing a crescendo. So you kind of you got to not get peaked too early, or you've nowhere to go.
That's what everybody does. Yeah. Sort of end of the second bar, they're at 90 degrees already with the sticks. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's good. That's cool.
There's a thing that I have been thinking about adding perhaps to the next version, which is a gap click, because I know there's like the Benny Greb gap click out. I ask people about PolyNome, and sometimes they say, oh yeah, I use PolyNome and I use Tempo Advance as well, and I'm like, why do you use Tempo Advance? Oh, because it's easy to just do a click if I just want to click. So that's why there's this button up here. So if you want just to click, you just tap on this, and then you've got to click. And if you want just big numbers on the screen, you tap on this, and there's big numbers. So now you've got a click that just gives you that. You can lock those big numbers up if you want a really simple one. Pin on. So now you've just got this. And I suppose now I've got the new tempo wheel. I could even have a tempo control on here somewhere. But that was the purpose of that metronome button, was to give like a very basic metronome that was always easily accessible. And then this metronome button is, say you want triplets or 16ths or different sounds or voice count.
And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2. 3, 4.
That's there we go.
2, 3, 4, 2.
So that was the purpose of that metronome button, because it did used to be a lot more complicated to just have a simple metronome. So then you recently added this new plus menu that explains more what's going on. But the polyrhythm in here, again, it used to be more difficult to create a polyrhythm because you used to have to edit the contents of rhythm 1 and rhythm 2 and do a whole bunch of stuff. And now this can just give you like a 2 against 3 or a 3 against 4 or something like that. And when you're in polyrhythm mode, you have this button that gives you different visualizations. And you've got a mode that will show you how to break down this polyrhythm. If you choose grid mode, it writes it out as the lowest common multiple and shows you accent every third note of triplet and accent every second note, and that gives you the 2 against 3. So again, that's something that like you could always do, but you used to have to program it by hand, and it was time consuming. And the same with the the song click thing. Like now you can tap on here and search for a cover band song that you're working on. I always use the Police as an example. So you're in a Police cover band, you want to click for every breath you take, you just tap on this, and now you've got a click, and it tells you the key signature and the tempo and the time signature and how long the song is.
Nice.
So things like that I've added to make it very quick to do those things. So what I'm thinking of is adding a gap click option to either this new preset menu or possibly the playlists menu. I think it might be better in the playlist menu. And what that would do, because I'll show you how you could manually do a gap click, is create a playlist called the gap click, and then edit this and add to it a rhythm. So we'll call this click. So 4/4 for like 2 reps, and add it, and then add another option will be a rhythm that would be the gap for 2 reps, and add that. But then we have to change that. We have to mute this rhythm. So now you've got your click. Actually, I'll have to mute the metronome as well in the next one. So 2 bars of that, and then I need to mute the metronome. So it's like, if I'm explaining this, there's a lot of things you have to do there, and I'm flying through it because I know what I'm doing. But that's not, they go, but yeah, I've got Benny Grubbs app because I just put the numbers in and hit play. So what I'm thinking is having a gap click option in here that if you said 2 bars of quarter notes and 2 bars of rest, it would generate that playlist for you. So you wouldn't have to do that hard work. But once you're in here, if you wanted this to be 3 bars of click and 2 bars of, you could tweak it, or you could add more to it so that it's, and the reason I mentioned this is I was thinking of having a diminishing click where it would play at lower and lower volumes. You've got a nice loud one, but then it just essentially fades out in the same way that I was showing you the crescendo thing. So anyway, did you have other questions?
Just a couple of other easy ones, hopefully. How easy or not is it to mirror to monitors with PolyNome or Rhythm Generator?
I mean, you just plug in the iPad to a monitor. I think it should
just direct.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And the only other thing that I was wondering, what's the minimum iOS or device type that you'd need to run either of the apps?
They're both minimum iOS 17.
So I mean, for example, at my studio, I've got my main phone, and I always use the last, the old phone, the recycled phone for the studio phone. Then, and it works fine on both. So because I've heard other people sort of suggesting that maybe it's a good idea just to get the cheapest iPad or iPhone you can get, just to get the apps you need, essentially. So
so as a developer insight to this, it used to be, I think I supported back to iOS 13 or something. And what happens as a developer is there'll be something that I can't do, and I'm only able to do on like the latest release. So if it was something that I could only do on iOS 26, I'm not going to do it, because I know a lot of people don't want to upgrade to that. But if it was something that you could only do on iOS 16, and I was supporting iOS 13, and that's like a long way back. So what happens to the code base is, when you add a new feature, you have to say, if they have iOS 16, do this, and if they've got an earlier version, do this. And the more things that come along at different versions, the code is like, if they got iOS 18, do this. If they got iOS 16, do this. If they got iOS 13, do this. And it gets really convoluted and difficult to maintain and to bug fix and things like that. So there comes a point at which I just go, you know what, like most devices run iOS 16 or iOS 17. So I think the same ones that ran iOS 17 would pretty much run iOS 16. So I just said, if I cut off at that point, then it allows me to like leap forward and use some of these features that make the development a lot easier. And then I can focus on, adding features. So I know that it does cut off some older devices, but I'm going to hopefully stick with supporting iOS 17 for a while. But when looking to buy the cheapest secondhand iPad that runs that, if you get the one that's right on the cusp, then it's, if I make it iOS 18 a minimum, then you will still be able to use whatever version you had. So if you buy the app, you can use that for life, but then you wouldn't get updates necessarily. So if I had new features, they wouldn't come to that older version. So didn't see any other questions come through. I think we had like 2 viewers for the whole thing. So thanks, Gaynor and Andro. I think it's Andro. I forget because it just says AU over here. But nice to see you. I haven't spoken to you for a while. Thanks, James, for organizing this. It will be left up live on the YouTube channel, so people can come watch it anytime. And I plan on doing some more. It's been really helpful having you to talk to. I don't know how well I would fare with this if it was just me and no comments coming in. How long I'm going to talk into the ether. Although I am quite good at that.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Joe.
Yeah, there's trouble brewing. So sign off. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right.
Speak soon.
Take care. See you soon.
Thanks for watching, everyone.